that in particular came into the topic of zombification. And Brother Hassan stated that this was someone who lost the capability for the spirit to totally function within the body. I think I may have run into this situation. I have a friend of mine who has recently woke up, but their transformation is not happening because they are not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. My question is, how is it someone can help themselves to wake up fully and accept the knowledge, moving into the stage of making connections as opposed to just liking the information and not being able to use it in their personal life, which is what they are having a hard time grasping. This person will ask me questions and I will direct her to videos that can be helpful. But after hearing you speak on the Ori and will and zombification, it felt that could be the challenge. Thanks in advance. You spoke about you had a friend who recently woke up, and that was the first flag that I put a mental marking in as I was reading this, because this is not an overnight process. Now, of course, certainly you didn't describe how recent is recent. So it could have been a couple months ago, could have been a couple years ago, could have been a decade ago. But I'm just going to go with the word recent, and I'm going to say that recent may be between a few months ago and I'll give you 18 months. So 1 year and a half, 18 months ago. I would consider that all to be pretty recent, okay, in terms of waking up. And what you noted was that their transformation is not happening because they're not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. Okay, so let's first get into the recently piece. This is not an overnight process. So your waking up or your rapture is an instantaneous thing, certainly. Your moment of enlightenment, where you wake up and you realize that everything is not as it seems, that is instantaneous. It's almost as if you are living in a world of pollution and death and toxicity, and somehow you're able to catapult yourself above the clouds, if only for a moment. And above the clouds, you get to see the sun is still shining. There's still fresh air up here. There's still moisture. But then you fall back down into the darkness of where you actually are. So if only for a moment you got a glimpse at what really resides over this world that has been created for you or you've created for yourself. So your coming into consciousness is actually a gradual process. It's a gradual process of getting back to that space. This is one of the reasons why people use narcotics, you want to call them, or herbs at times, in their quote-unquote shamanistic work, or even in healing work. Sometimes we may use certain herbs that will affect the energy body and also induce alternative ways of thinking. And rightly so, we call this getting high. So what happens in that moment that one is high, they're able to feel and see things because the grip and the density of the physical body is no longer the same trap for the mind that it was before. Okay, so once they can shake off the density of the body, they can now assail and go to certain realms and places mentally that they may not have been able to before because of the three-dimensional paradigm they may have been functioning from. So now what happens is when the high comes down, they're not supposed to go and find more drug. But in fact, what they're supposed to do is figure out how to recreate that feeling of lightness. And really what they're doing, they're coming into what we call clear light. But really come into that space of clear light without using the narcotic. Some people feel that they can't, so they spend the rest of their lives using narcotics. Okay, so what your friend experienced recently, that recent awakening, was just that glimpse being thrown up into the sky, but she still has to work her way up to being able to recreate not only the feeling, but recreate that space that she was in when she first awoke. Okay, and that's really what the challenge is. Being that's why we learn different systems, and whatever we learn, whether it be yoga, which is very effective, deep breathing, meditation, of course, different spiritual ritual, dance, song, ritual that involves offerings and communion, divination, because we're striving for that space again. And by the consistent and repetition that we establish with these rituals, we can eventually then, on cue, recreate that ascension to that space. On cue. That is why we read books. You know, some people, they just like to do rituals and they go strictly by feeling and what my inner wisdom tells me, and all that's good. But the problem is with those individuals, they can never really totally recreate or teach and hand down the experience because they haven't coupled it with the academic understanding.
All right, greetings and peace, everyone. This is Kim, your host, and welcome to another live episode or segment of ANU Asafo. If you would like to call in and share an experience or make a comment or anything, you can at 347-945-7680. So, thank you, as always, for tuning in and taking time out of your day to check us out. Today's topic is going to be about the steps of spiritual growth or spiritual transformation. And the clip that you heard came from a Foundational Friday show entitled Zombies, Debates, and Transformation. Please excuse that background noise. It seems like every Wednesday at this time, that same truck drives by. But that was from a Foundational Friday show. Again, Zombies, Debates, and Transformation. So if you want to listen to the entire show, you can go to our YouTube channel. Orisha Yoruba is one of them, but you can also go to Enlightenment and Transformation TV to check out the entire show. So as always, before we get into part of the show, let's go over some announcements. I want to invite you all to our next webinar on November 11th. And in that particular webinar, we're going to be discussing alchemy. So this is the third webinar in a series that I'm doing. The first was on herbs. The second was on oils. And like I said, this third one is going to be on alchemy. So we're kind of tying in those concepts that we learned in the first two webinars all into this last one of alchemy. So if you missed the first two, you definitely don't want to miss this one. Again, the webinar will be on November 11th. And you can register now at seduluhouse.com/events. Now, before, you may have heard me say go to anunation.org/events. And you can still go there, but we are now moving all of our course material over to Sedulu House. Before, just the ANU spiritual training was there, but now you can register and check out our full list of webinars for the upcoming year at seduluhouse.com/events. Okay. And you can also go ahead and RSVP for the webinar on that site. We will be broadcasting the webinar from that site as we have in the past. So we've just now moved everything to the seduluhouse.com website, which is the class component of ANU Nation. So all of our courses, the ANU spiritual training, the priesthood training, and all the webinars will be there. Okay, so make sure you visit and check it out. We got a lot of great things coming up next year for the webinars, and that'll be once a month. So you can, dive into your studies a bit deeper by checking out those webinars, along with registering for the class. So as you heard before, as you heard me say many, many times about the books and the trainings and everything, ANU Nation and Chief is, I would say very unique in that he's not trying to create worship or people that are very dependent on him. He really wants you to, it's like the book says, grasp the root of divine power. And this is so you become empowered so that you can be a leader or the Babalawo of your own family. He's not necessarily trying to have you to come to him all the time to interpret dreams or to, do rituals for him or whatever, but it is understandable if you need that help, but we do offer services if you are committed to learning how to do this. We do offer courses and resources to help you do so. OsirisLife.com is one website that you can visit, like if you are in those beginning phases and you're not so confident in your rituals, or you need help with rituals and you need maybe a little bit more guidance, and a little bit more hand holding, and if you need more readings than the average, you can go to OsirisLife.com and register for monthly services. And this is how you would get in touch with Chief to, like I said, to be, if you want to be a little bit more, I guess, personal with some of the things that you need to do instead of just sending a quick email. Okay. So that is the website you need to go to, and that is OsirisLife.com. Okay. Again, make sure you're checking our website regularly. That's ANUNation.org. That is the hub website for all of our services. And that's just so that you'll stay in the loop of what's going on. Again, our events will be on ANU Nation as well as the Dulu House. But you can go to ANU Nation to sign up for our monthly, what's it called? Newsletters. Excuse me. You can sign up for the monthly newsletters to stay in the loop and kind of see, what's going on, if there are any retreats, or if Chief is going to be in a city near you, or if there are any, new books, all of these things that'll be released through the newsletter. Okay, so make sure you go there to sign up for that. Keep up with all of our YouTube sites, and the reason for this is because starting November 1st, which is coming up very soon, all of our shows will be broadcasting live from our YouTube channel. All of the Enlightenment and Transformation shows. So the website that you need to subscribe to would be Enlightenment and Transformation TV. And again, that's on our YouTube channel. The only show that will be broadcasting from Blog Talk from now on is going to be Chief Speaks on Sundays. And that's really for the high frequency listeners. But we'll still be broadcasting simultaneously from our channel, Enlightenment and Transformation, as well as the high frequency channel. Okay. Some of those sites, again, are Orisha Yoruba, ANU Nation, Enlightenment and Transformation TV, Sadulu House, and Yuya Assaan-ANU. So make sure you check those out and hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share it if there's some videos there that you like. There are also, I think, about 3 full lectures on those channels that you can check out. If you didn't get to visit or didn't get to go on any of the self-actualization tour stops last year, there are 3 really, really good lectures that Chief did in, I believe it was Dallas and New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken. And I think you'll really enjoy those. So those are like 3-hour-long lectures, and they are on the YouTube pages. Okay. Let's see. Alpha Omega Store. Don't let me forget that one. That's really, really important. Alpha Omega Store is where you can go to get all of your spiritual supplies and ritual packages. So all of these things that we're giving you in shows and webinars, like all the rituals and the things that you learn in the priesthood training, you can get those supplies on alphaomegastore.com. So you definitely want to make sure you go there first. And one reason why is because most of the things that are in the store are tailored to the rituals that Chief has personally given out in different mediums. So sometimes these things are really, really hard to find. I know recently I was doing one where I had to use bluing. And that's, and you would think, I'm in a pretty rural part of the country. That's like an old school kind of thing that you would find. But I could not find it anywhere here, hardly. I did look up on some, like at a old, it's like an old kind of grocery store or whatever. They actually had some, but some of these things are really, really hard to find. And by the time you try to find it somewhere else, I mean, it can be very expensive. So make sure you go to alphaomegastore.com to get all your spiritual supplies. The prices are really, really reasonable, and it gets shipped out really quick. So make sure you visit alphaomegastore.com. Okay, so right now I'm going to take a quick break for some announcements, and we'll be right back to discuss the clip for this drawing.
Are you ready to take action and rise to the next stage of your evolution? Then monthly life coaching services at osirislife.com are just for you. Osiris Life does not just focus on spiritual development. We offer a holistic approach to helping you realize your goals and teach you the tools to overcome any barriers to your success. Services at Osiris Life are provided on a monthly basis and include, but are not limited to, spiritual consultations and one-on-one coaching, instructionals via podcasts and videos, life mapping and goal tracking, anonymity, spiritual work done on your behalf, and there are 3 package levels to choose from. Take the steps to get your life on track and flourishing by purchasing a subscription package today at osirislife.com. We invite you to share in the power of goodwill by becoming an ANU Nation sponsorship partner. ANU Nation is a community design organization whose programs and services often depend on sponsors and philanthropic support from foundations, businesses, and generous individuals like you. Our sponsorship program provides involvement by our affiliates in the 5 major markets, plus the impact of an international media campaign. By partnering with us, you join a powerful movement that supports thousands of people who find healing and personal growth and development with our help. For more information and to purchase a sponsorship package today, please visit us at anunation.org/anu/sponsor-us.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to ANU Asafo. Again, I'm Kim, your host. And I want to remind you all again to make sure you get registered for Alchemy, which is our 3rd webinar that was in the series of herbs and oils and alchemy. You can go to seduluhouse.com/events to RSVP for that. And you can also check out what we're going to have coming up for the next year. This is going to be the last webinar for this year. And in December, we're going to take a break to reload and get back started again in January. And also, we're going to be working on the book and the course that go along with the herbs, the oils, and the alchemy webinar. So there will be a book for each, and there'll be a course for each that'll help you go even deeper than where we went in the webinar. So those things should be done and completed by early next year. So you'll be able to not only register for more webinars, but that material will be out as well. Okay, so remember to go to seduluhouse.com/events. And I just want to say too that again, I'm really glad that we've started doing these webinars because a lot of us can't travel, like other, I know a lot of Chief's clients and things are located on the West Coast, on the East Coast. But for some of us that stay in remote areas or on the other side of the country, having the opportunity to get to one of the lectures or one of the classes can be quite expensive. So now, we have the opportunity to just pay, $20 to get a 2-hour lecture. And, if you were at the last one, it ran over just a little bit because sometimes, like the information is really, really good. And the rituals that Chief gives us in the last one were very extensive. So sometimes it can run a little longer, but the point is you get all that for $20. I mean, where else can you get that much information and, that quality of information that Chief gives us? So, you can now just attend these things from the comfort of your couch. And believe it or not, we still have some people that have not really taken advantage of the convenience of it. And I just want say, if you are registered for the alchemy webinar that's coming up, make sure that at the time when it actually starts and when we're getting into it, that you have a pen and paper, that you're in a space where you can listen and take notes, because this is not like just a blog talk show, or like we're just spouting off information. We give you things that you can actually do, and there are actual steps. It's not just 2 hours of just information and facts. We really do put a lot of work into the webinars to help you all with your rituals and everything. And we give out a lot of good things that you can actually work on as soon as the webinar is over. So this is not necessarily something that I would listen to on the train, on the way home from work, or on my phone, because the slides have a lot of information. Sometimes we show videos. It's not really something that you can kind of listen to on the go. Like I said, it's not like a blog talk show, or even like this show. It's very, we get really into the webinars. And like I said, we put a lot of work into them. So make sure that if you're registered and if you plan to attend, that you kind of block out those 2 hours from 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time. But you block out those 2 hours so you can take full advantage of what's going on. And these webinars aren't broadcast again later. Like if you miss it, we've had a few people to do that. After they've missed it, they'll send us a email saying, I can't access, the password's not working, I can't get in. What's the password? And it's because once it's over, it's over. It's not going to be aired again. So you want to make sure that you're, paying attention, and that you're in a space mentally and physically to be ready for a webinar. Okay. So again, let's get back to the clip. The clip that you heard at the beginning of the show came from a Foundational Friday show that Chief did, entitled Zombies, Debates, and Transformation. And in case you missed it at the beginning of the show, I'm going to play it once more, and then we'll start to talk about it a little bit, dissect it. And again, this is a live show, so if you want to call in and make a comment or have a question, the number is 347-945-7680. Okay, so let me play the clip once more. Here we go.
And it says, hello, I am recently coming into the information. H. Yuya Assaan-ANU. Happy to say that I have been pleased with many of the lectures and purchased the book, Grasping Through the Divine Power. One lecture in particular came into the topic of zombification. Brother Assaan stated that this was someone who lost the capability for the spirit to totally function within the body. I think I may have run into this situation. I have a friend of mine who has recently woke up, but their transformation is not happening because they are not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. My question is, how is it someone can help themselves to wake up fully and accept the knowledge, moving into the stage of making connections, as opposed to just liking the information and not being able to use it in their personal life, which is what they are having a hard time grasping. This person will ask me questions, and I will direct her to videos that can be helpful. But after hearing you speak on the Ori and will, zombification, and felt that could be the challenge. Thanks in advance. You spoke about you had a friend who recently woke up, and that was the first flag that I put a mental marking in as I was reading this, because this is not an overnight process. Now, of course, certainly you didn't describe how recent is recent. So it could have been a couple months ago, could have been a couple years ago, could have been a decade ago. But I'm just going to go with the word recent, and I'm going to say that recent may be between a few months ago and I'll give you 18 months. So 1 year and a half, 18 months ago. I would consider that all to be pretty recent, okay, in terms of waking up. And what you noted was that their transformation is not happening because they're not able to feel and experience the things that they learned. Okay, so let's first get into the recently piece. This is not an overnight process. So your waking up or your rapture is an instantaneous thing, certainly. Your moment of enlightenment, where you wake up and you realize that everything is not as it seems, that is instantaneous. It's almost as if you are living in a world of pollution and death and toxicity, and somehow you're able to catapult yourself above the clouds, if only for a moment. And above the clouds, you get to see the sun is still shining. There's still fresh air up here. There's still moisture. But then you fall back down into the darkness of where you actually are. So if only for a moment you got a glimpse at what really resides over this world that has been created for you, or you've created for yourself. So your coming into consciousness is actually a gradual process. It's a gradual process of getting back to that space. This is one of the reasons why people use narcotics, we want to call them, or herbs at times, in their quote-unquote shamanistic work, or even in healing work. Sometimes we may use certain herbs that will affect the energy body and also induce alternative ways of thinking. And rightly so, we call this getting high. So what happens in that moment that one is high, they're able to feel and see things because the grip and the density of the physical body is no longer the same trap for the mind that it was before. Okay, so once they can shake off the density of the body, they can now ascend and go to certain realms and places mentally that they may not have been able to before because of a three-dimensional paradigm they may have been functioning from. So now what happens is when the high comes down, they're not supposed to go and find more drug. But in fact, what they're supposed to do is figure out how to recreate that feeling of lightness. And really what they're doing, they're coming into what we call clear light. But really come into that space of clear light without using the narcotic. Some people feel that they can't, so they spend the rest of their lives using narcotics. Okay, so what your friend experienced recently, that recent awakening, was just that glimpse being thrown up into the sky, but she still has to work her way up to being able to recreate not only the feeling, but recreate that space that she was in when she first awoken. Okay, and that's really what the challenge is, and that's why we learn different systems. And whatever we learn, whether it be yoga, which is very effective, deep breathing, meditation, of course, different spiritual ritual, dance, song, ritual that involves offerings and communion, divination, because we're striving for that space again. And by the consistent and repetition that we establish with these rituals, we can eventually then, on cue, recreate that ascension to that space, on cue. That is why we read books. You know, some people, they just like to do rituals and they go strictly by feeling and what my inner wisdom tells me, and all that's good. But the problem is with those individuals, they can never really totally recreate or teach and hand down the experience because they haven't coupled it with the academic understanding.
All right. So that was a clip from a Foundational Friday show that Chief did entitled Zombies, Debates, and Transformation. Yeah, I had to think about it for a second. So if you want to check out the entire show, again, you can go to Enlightenment and Transformation TV and search for that title, or check one of our other YouTube channels, Orisha Yoruba or ANU Nation. But more than likely, it'll be on Enlightenment and Transformation TV. We're uploading things to that channel daily, you know. So as usual, you know, when he answers these questions that callers have, it can go in so many different directions. That one answer he gave, and that wasn't even the entire answer. He actually went further into explanation, but it was so long I cut it off. So I may just come back to the other part next strong show. But one of the so many things went through my head when I listened to him break that answer that question. One of the first points was that the caller was stated that they were trying to, I guess, wake their friend up, and he was saying that one of the problems that their friend was having, I guess they were awake, and, to use his terms, but not so much that they had included it, incorporated what they were learning into their daily life. And I think that's something that we all really, really want for our friends and for our family, but we really have just got to be realistic about this. Everybody's not going to do it. And everybody doesn't want to do it. This is the reason why Chief stresses family so much. You have to really, the only people you can control to an extent is the people that are in your home. And so you can't really bring everybody else along with you on this journey. Everybody doesn't want the same thing. I was kind of the same way when I came into this. I just thought, gosh, this makes so much sense. Why not? Why wouldn't someone want this? They keep saying they're having all these problems. They can't figure this out. So let me give them this solution, because this works. It makes so much sense. He has a solution. So I just thought, to me, it was just common sense, but I had to realize, you know what? This is a culture that has been created. The ANU order or ANU teachings. It's a culture, and everybody does not want to live that. And it's not just ANU. You can find, other pockets of people who have established some type of, I guess, way of life or culture. Everybody doesn't want it. They don't want it as bad. They may just want to know a few fun facts, historical facts, or they may just want to be able to use it to win debates or arguments with someone. And maybe they just want all this information just to show off. Some people are like that. They just want to be able to sound smart, So everybody doesn't want it, as bad as we do, perhaps. And another thing is that, we kind of assume that people all of a sudden wake up or become conscious once we expose them to something. We never stop to think that person may have already been awake. You may be the one who's just waking up. And now you're realizing, oh, they're awake too. Because, this process, like she said, is instantaneous, but the longer process is not overnight. And this is what I was talking about one strong when I was talking about frequencies. It's like now you're picking up on your friend's frequency, really, because they're not, and the reason why I say that is because they're not really put off by the information that you're presenting them. Usually if a person is not already awake, if they're sleeping, the information that you bring them would be offensive. Like they'd be like, what? Get this out of my face. I'm not trying to study that. But if they're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. If they're actually open to it, that kind of already signifies that they may have already had that, moment where they woke up. And it's not you that woke them up. It's you. It could have been something else. And now that you're both awake, you kind of found each other. You're kind of on the same frequency. You know what I mean? So it could have been that he just woke up. And this, I'll give you an example. And we got to really understand that consciousness for one person is not the same for the other person. Like, if you're into indigenous spirituality, that's just one form of consciousness. That's just one avenue of consciousness. Someone else may be really conscious in playing the saxophone or something. Like, that may be their spiritual journey, is to really get into the saxophone. And you're not conscious of that. That's not your thing. But you can be just as spiritual studying music as you can indigenous spirituality. There are different avenues to this. It's not just one road. And I'll give you an example. I had a friend that I grew up with who, when we were much younger, she was like really into vampires and, you know, vampire culture and werewolves and all this kind of stuff. And I was just not there. I did not like scary movies. I couldn't stand to watch a vampire movie. I just couldn't stand all the blood and, you know, just the whole concept. I could not get into it. And then I found that years later, now that I'm an adult and now that I can that I've become, you know, my study has broadened a bit, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Now I understand this whole, you know, kind of obsession with that some people have with vampires. I understand, you know, the story and the energy and stuff behind vampires and why this is popular. And, you know, people starting to read books like books by Octavia Butler and, you know, different science fiction kind of stuff that I wasn't, you know, even aware of as a kid. But now I'm like, oh, wow, this is really conscious stuff. And, you know, I'm thinking I'm all conscious and she's not, or like I'm bringing something new to her. And she was like, yeah, I told you about this when we were teenagers, you know? So sometimes we kind of just assume that there's only one type of consciousness. Now, there are other things that this friend and I probably don't agree on or don't kind of gel on. But I was just using, you know, just the vampire thing as one avenue. As one example, excuse me. So sometimes we just have to realize that there's not one road. There's so many avenues to consciousness or into this spiritual journey that we can't just be so arrogant to think that, oh, because this person is not studying Kemet, you know, they're not conscious. There may be something else, you know, that they're into that you just don't understand. So sometimes these people will float in and out of your life just because you guys are on different frequencies. And sometimes you meet up at certain points, and then sometimes you'll drift back apart, you know. Another thing that Chief said was that waking up is instantaneous. And so he was saying that this happens very quickly, but you don't always stay there. And I would definitely have to agree with that. I remember just being a child. It's like I remember instantly thinking like something is not right. Like I knew like instantly like I had different interests than everybody else and everything. But like you said, you don't always just stay in this state. And I'll give you another example. I had an instance once where I was astral traveling. And, you know, and this is, you know, I saw it when I went to this place, I saw it and I experienced it. But like you said, you don't always stay there. At some point, it's like you come back down. But it was like I entered into this world and I was looking around and everything. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what is going on. You know, you're observing all of this stuff. But then you kind of come out of it. So after that, you know, I came back down. And one thing that I did take note of is that there were steps to this process. And that's something that people take for granted sometimes. You know, these things just kind of happen randomly for them. And like Chief said, they can't recreate them. So, you know, I hear this a lot when it comes to people outside of Orisha culture say that things like you don't need to be initiated to work with Orisha. They simplify it just to, you know, they really oversimplify it. And it's true. No, you don't have to, but you do to an extent to understand what you're doing and know the formulas to do it. You know, it does take certain ceremonies or initiations for certain things to happen. And this is calculated, and this has been repeated. Some of these things have been repeated over and over. So it's not like it's a trial and error kind of thing. This is, you know, the prayers or the things that are chanted, the tools that are used is very exact. It's not something that these, you know, babalawos or chiefs are guessing at. This is something that's been repeated over and over again. And I'll give you another example. There's a really, really, really good movie called Yeelen, Yeelen. I think that's how you pronounce it. And in the movie, it has a lot of magic in it. And in the movie, one of the characters was using a spell or doing a ritual, I guess you can call it. to find someone and to kind of put I don't want to say curse, but to kind of do somebody in, I guess you could say. But in the movie, while he was doing doing the ritual, it's like all of a sudden, boom, it's like a fire, he created fire out of nowhere. There was he didn't light a match or anything like that. It just, fire just appeared. And I just thought, and the way he did it in the movie, it wasn't something that was surprising. He wasn't shocked that it happened or anything. It was very matter of fact about this, and I noticed that in this part of the world, especially with indigenous cultures and African spirituality, things like this, like magic and creating fire or, things way beyond that is very common. This is not something that's, a surprise. Like people aren't shocked. Ooh, like, you do that? You can really do that? This is like commonplace to them. And it's been done like time and time and time again by other people, which is why it's so commonplace. Now, there are steps and initiations that you have to go through. Like the average person doesn't know how to do this. Now, can the average person work with fire? Yeah, you can light a match and set something on fire, but the average person can't just create it out of thin air. So to me, that's like the difference between, what people say, you don't have to be initiated. They just oversimplify some of the parts of the tradition, because now we're just in this age where we just want everything right now. We don't want to have to work for anything. Which brings me to my next point is that, that's the opposite side, because sometimes people, like Chief said, abuse narcotics for this very same reason. The drug becomes our ritual, or marijuana becomes the ritual. I was watching a video earlier today that someone sent me, and in the video, the person was, it was like a conscious kind of conscious rap. And in the video, this person was, breaking out the conscious books, the Get Deep Overnight book list, one of those books, Chancellor Williams' book to be exact. And he was, reading the book and looked like he was really studying this book. But to get into the book, he had to, smoke some marijuana. So now he's smoking his marijuana and he's reading. And it's like, that becomes the ritual. So, I asked myself, what's the difference? And I think that in one instance, it's like, we feel like when it comes to initiations and trainings and going through an actual training that may take longer than a weekend, like we feel like, oh, that's not necessary. I don't have to do that. I don't need that to be able to do. You don't have to do that to be able to work with Orisha. But then on the other hand, it's like we say, oh, well, you need to smoke some herb, or you need to, take some ayahuasca, or or something to get to that point. So we have a ritual and a formula when it comes to that. And I think it's just because, to be able to smoke something or drink something, it requires less work and less dedication. I think that's a huge difference. And, and because we're such an emotional people, I think that, things like that, like smoking or drinking or something, it causes us to feel. And we think that feeling something is like the end all be all evidence of what's real. Like if we can feel it, go through all these emotions and things, then we know it worked. And Chief will be the first one to tell you that this is not true. Your feelings do not validate the ritual or your step in your next step in evolution. And that's because feelings are transient. They come and go. And this is why meditation is so important. And it's because, during meditation, you observe your feelings and emotions, and you see how transient and how quick they come and go. So you're not so dependent on what you feel all the time. You know that this is just a temporary state. So it's like, the thoughts and the feelings, they just come and go like clouds. And you'll actually be able to observe and see how quick your emotions change, or how quick your feelings and things change. I mean, it's like from 1 second to the next. And that's what they call, the monkey mind, or you have this chatter going on in your head all the time. You'll be thinking about your problems 1 second, then the next second you'll say, oh, my leg itches. Then scratch your leg, then next thing you know, oh, something over here tickles. Oh, what about, your mind just goes from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So during meditation, you'll start to see that, my emotions are they fluctuate so much, and you'll learn how not to depend on being so emotional all the time or judging things by feeling. So when you abuse things like this, just as she said in the clip, you become a slave to the tool. You become an addict, or if a drug is your, like marijuana or alcohol or something like that, if that's your tool of choice to get to this so-called spiritual state, you become a slave to the tool. It's like the tool becomes more important than the ritual. The tool becomes more important than the actual experience or whatever it is you're trying to do. You get to a point where you feel like you can't do it on your own. You have to have this tool. And so it's the same thing like with taking herbal supplements. The supplements then become your drug. It never occurs to you to get the nutrients from your food, but you just keep eating bad and then just say, oh, I'll take some golden seal tea behind it. I'll pop some ginseng, or I'll take some golden seal, or I'll get some burdock, whatever it is. You'll just start popping all these different herbs all the time. So it's like now the drug has become a verb. It's like you're drugging all the time. And you have to remember, anything outside of yourself that you use are tools. So we can't let the tool become a crutch, because one day you may not have access to the tools. But these tools do help us, they train us, but you just can't become dependent on the tool. And this is where ritual comes in. It helps us to formulate steps to get back to that space. So it's just like in an experiment or a chemistry experiment, we have to, record each and everything that we do so that we'll know, like, where we went wrong the time before. So we can kind of perfect this so that someone else can come behind us and get the same result. You have to, but you have to, like she said, you have to incorporate both sides. You can't be all intellectual. It can't be all just, spiritual and feeling and all this other. You have to be able to synthesize those things. So when using tools, we have to understand too that these tools symbolize something, and that's also so that you don't become dependent on something outside of yourself. And this is why we did the webinars on herbs and oils. You have to understand the spirit behind the tool. So it's like, what if I'm doing a ritual and I've always used sage to clear space, for example? Well, what if one day I'm in a position where I don't have access to sage? What do you do now? Or do you even know why you use sage? What's the power or the spirit behind sage in particular? Is it the sage, or is it the smoke from the sage? And a lot of times we don't even bother to ask these questions, or do we even try to find out, just because, we're so dogmatic. We're like, just give me a ritual and let me do it. And we do things just because that's the way you do it. That's that kind of religious program. Like, you do it this way. Don't ask why. Just do it. Just because I said so. This is how you do it. So anyway, I think that's what Chief meant when he said that people haven't, coupled it with an academic understanding. And that goes back to even, like what I was saying about initiations and things. And believe it or not, there is a rational explanation behind the rituals and the tools that we use in the rituals. There's a science to this. And, like I said, these aren't movements based on feelings or emotions. You have to ask yourself, how is it that Chief can give you a ritual or give some work for you, give you something to do? And no matter how deficient you are in magic and rituals, it still works. Like he said, all of us don't have magic. Some people just don't have it. But the ritual that he gives you but it will work for anybody. So how does that happen? And that's just because no matter what, some things just work on the basis of their nature alone. Fire is going to burn No matter who starts it, it's fire. But what you can do with that flame is like a whole nother thing altogether. If you can, talk to the flame or make the flame do this or make it do certain things or make it die down or even create a flame, that's something completely different. So, like, again, the academics and the rituals and things are important. So, again, I'm going to pull this in and tie it to our alchemy webinar. The reasons for these webinars is to give you a deeper understanding of what you're doing. And as you know, the next webinar, again, is on alchemy, which ties the information that we learned in the other two webinars together. So you're going to be learning how to manipulate and transform, things or tools outside of yourself to mirror the change you want to occur in your life. And I'll give you an example, of course. Making tinctures is a part of an alchemical process. Now I don't say which. I'm just gonna, it's just a part of it's used quite often in different alchemical processes. So when you make a tincture, what you're doing is you're gonna add a very strong alcohol to whatever sample you're using. So what does this symbolize? Well, first you have to take the herb that you're using and you grind it down, like with a mortar and pestle, to homogenize it or to mix it all up, and to, make it all uniform. So, that means physically, that means like you're gathering all of your issues or all of your problems and things, that you're having issues with, whatever you're doing the ritual for. And you're going to combine all of those things together so that you can work with them, so that you can analyze them, so that you can work with them, you can see them, they're in front of you. So when you add the alcohol, what does alcohol do? So the alcohol, once you homogenize the actual sample and you add the alcohol to it, what the alcohol does, it dissolves all the impurities in the sample. So it's going to clean it up. And this kind of symbolizes sifting out all of the bad stuff in your life that are hindering you. You're getting rid of all the dirt and debris, or that could be, bad friends or families or horrible habits that you had. That's the detritus that you had in your life. When I say detritus, I mean like the waste or the garbage. So that alcohol is cleaning that up, is getting rid of all of that. Now, in alchemy, there are 7 processes that you can do that mirror or reflect the spiritual ascension or stages in spiritual evolution and transformation. Of course, I'm not going to get into the details of all of those in this show. You'll have to register for that. So that's something that we're going to go over in the alchemy course. But in the webinar, I'm going to show you how you can actually create your own elixirs to help you go through those stages. And again, remember that these things are symbolic, but they're very real. It's you're linking the internal with the external. So when you're going through these processes and you're ingesting these elixirs that you've created, you're going to start to notice changes in your physical world because these things are going on internally and externally. So these tools that you use, the herbs, the whole chemical processes, everything that you use outside of yourself, these are like conduits to the invisible spiritual realm. So in the webinar, of course, we'll go over that process and you'll learn that process. So of course, and then we're going to talk about some other things such as transmutation and things like that. But of course, you'll have to register for the webinar for that. So and again, to register for the webinar, you can go to seduluhouse.com/events, and it is going to be a 2-hour long live webinar. So you will be able to ask questions, and like I said, make sure you come prepared to learn. Have pen and paper ready. I suggest, if you can help it, don't watch on your phone, or like I said, if you're doing something, if you're busy or if you're commuting and things like that. This is not really that type of thing. For a radio show or something, that's fine, but for a webinar, it's like a class. So I make sure that you're kind of in that mental space that you're about to sit down and attend a class. Okay. So I will that you've enjoyed this segment of ANU Asafo. If you missed it or if you came in late, go to Enlightenment and Transformation TV to check out the entire show. And again, make sure you get registered. That webinar will be on November 11th. And again, we're going to start at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You don't want to miss it. So, and again, when you go to Enlightenment and Transformation TV, make sure you click subscribe so that you don't miss any of the shows starting November 1st. Remember, we're going to be broadcasting all of the Enlightenment and Transformation shows from YouTube, from that channel. We're no longer going to be using Blog Talk. The only one that will still be there is Chief Speaks on Sundays. Okay, and that may even change come maybe next year. We'll see. So thank you for tuning into ANU Asafo. And until next strong, I'm Kim, your host. And thank you for listening. Peace.